Welcome to the Question Experience. We're your hosts, Amanda Ross, and I'm Bex Mason. And today we're talking to Joanna Hockly-Andrews from Horslyx, where she works as an area sales manager for the south of the UK. Hi, Joanna, welcome. And hi, Amanda, how are you today?
Good, thanks, Bex. How are you?
I am good. I've got a little bit of the giggles this morning. I'm feeling a little bit like, woohoo, I don't know why. It's been quite a busy few days. So you're going to have to excuse me if I get on a rambling front. But I'm really excited to speak to Joanna today from Horslyx because it's a product that I'm using and I massively believe in. And today we're going to do a lot of myth busting about Horslyx. So first of all, I'll just give a quick introduction for Joanna. Joanna, you've got extensive experience in the horse industry, including working as a dressage groom for a high-profile rider, a stable manager for a riding school in Qatar, a liveried helper for Her Majesty the Queen.
Wow.
And to top it all off, you have a Bachelor of Sciences and Master of Sciences in Equine Science and Animal Science from the University of Aberystwyth. So, I mean, talk about an overachiever. If there's someone that knows something about it, it's you.
Good.
So.
That's ridiculous, Joanna.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I always forget, and then people read it off, and I'm like, oh, actually, I suppose I have done a fair amount in a little bit of time. I'm not a spring chicken anymore, but yeah.
I just want to know how you pronounce where your university was.
Aberystwyth.
Right.
So
okay.
if you think,
is that Welsh?
Yeah. So it's a.
Yeah.
We're quite lucky in the UK. I think it's changed a bit now, but because I'm a Welsh student, if you went to university in Wales, you had massively reduced university fees. So that's why I went. It's also an hour down the road, so kind of made sense. And it's got a really good reputation for equine.
Right.
So I've been using Horslyx, as I was saying before. It's a vitamin and mineral supplement that comes in a form of a lick. I think it's a revolutionary way of feeding horses because obviously it's not like a balancer you put in your feed. You can monitor it more. So, Joanna, do you want to just start off by telling our listeners a little bit more about Horslyx products?
Yeah, so you are exactly right with what you've just said. So Horslyx is basically a balancer in the form of a lick instead of the more traditional pellet. It's been formulated to balance the typical deficiencies that you'd find in forage and grazing. So, for example, if no matter where you are in the country, especially in the UK, you're deficient in something, so all it does is essentially offer those vitamins and minerals as a way to top them up to make sure that your horse is getting the nutrients that it needs. And because it's a lick, it's more of a natural way of feeding. So it's basically it replicates a little bit more how they'd feed naturally. So they trickle feed rather than having sort of 3, 4, 5 main meals that you give them. So it's just a little bit of a different way of getting it in. And essentially, majority of horses will start to self-regulate. You'll get some horses that will never self-regulate because they're a bit like humans, and some people really like eating food and some horses really like eating food. So,
the piglets.
But the majority of the time, exactly, little piglets. So they start to, initially they'll be like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then they start to sort of settle down onto it, which is exactly how you want them to do it. So yeah, it's really straightforward. It's just a balancer, but in the form of a lick instead of a pellet, basically.
Oh, okay.
So when you first give it to the horses, they will. It smells amazing, honestly. I don't know. Can we try it? I've never tried it. I don't know if it's something humans should try.
I mean,
have you got one there?
I've been in.
No, don't.
I should have brought one, shouldn't I? I've been in training before, and I've cracked it open and been like, "Smell this," and the staff will be like, "Oh, just try it." I'm like, "Don't try it. It's not like the vitamins and minerals in the recommended daily allowance that you need. So probably don't try it. You can sniff it by all means, but I mean, I wouldn't go licking it."
Oh, okay. That's sad. That's shameful.
So it's not like a normal molasses treat, is it? Because I've actually got one. So my little licket type of story is that that's what we had. We had lickets, and then Horslyx came about, and I was at Sydney Royal, and the horses are stabled inside, showground conditions all the time. And, my horse was a little bit bored, and so he didn't need to keep eating because he already had enough, flesh. So I found a couple of things, and the Horslyx was one of them. And I noticed there were a couple of different flavors there. And he really liked it, so I ended up putting it in the corner of his box. And I noticed that he'd go back and forth, and sometimes he'd be over there for a while, and then he'd sort of self-regulate. So tell me, so it's not molasses. What makes it different?
Well, it is molasses, so it's based on molasses. So in the licks, they're 33% molasses. Basically, it's a way of making it palatable. And you've got to have a base to bind all the vitamins and minerals and trace elements and everything together. So it, exactly like you said, you can put it in as a board and buster, you can use it as a reward, you can use it as a balancer. It's essentially multi-uses. But it's a bit like so on like Anodin or paracetamol for us, it's got like that sugar coating.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the same sort of thing. It's just to make it a little bit more palatable for them to eat. Because I imagine that eating straight up vitamins, minerals.
Oh my God, can you imagine? Especially if it tasted like electrolytes, it'd be like, wow.
Yeah.
But I think one of the biggest things we need to get across here is that when everybody hears molasses, they go, there's alarm bells. You think sugar, you think it can't be good for my horse, it can't be good for my horse's teeth, it's going to set them alight. And that's the ongoing thread that I get through messages when people see me feeding it. Oh, will that make my horse fiery? Will that make my horse lit up? Will it give it too much energy? Will it be bad
for his teeth?
And I think that is what's so amazing about this product. And Joanna has explained it to me many, many times and through emails and things, because I struggled to get my head around it, because we've been drilled into us since a young age that too much sugar is bad for the horses. But it's regulated, and the amount of sugar that's actually in one of those massive blocks, they don't eat it all at once. They trickle feed. It will take them weeks to get through it.
Yeah, so you're spot on in that. So the majority of feedback I get from different people, whether it be sort of store staff or owners like yourselves, sugar does have a bad reputation. Whether I think that's kind of across the board in humans and horses. But sugar in the diet is worrying. Obviously, you've got lots of conditions that are sugar related or starch related, but sugar is in their diet no matter what you feed. So sugar in grass, for example, in about 50 kilos of grass, there's about 2 kilos of sugar, but you wouldn't sort of worry about that when you're turning your horse out. In hay, there's a lot of sugar as well. So in about 10 kilos of hay, there's about 1 kilo of sugar. But nobody sort of quibbles over giving a slice of hay extra. So we've got to remember that sugar is in the macronutrient carbohydrates. So the horse is designed to eat loads of different macronutrients. So you've got obviously carbohydrates we're going to be focusing on. So there's fermentable and hydrolyzable. So hydrolyzable carbs are broken down in the foregut, so the small intestine, and fermentable are broken down in the hindgut, so large intestine. So obviously we know that the horse has got foregut, hindgut, separated by cecum, large intestine, all those sorts of things. So if we're talking about sugar, we've got to also then talk about starch a little bit. So lots of sugar and starch can increase the risk of equine gastric ulcers, which I think a lot of people are obviously concerned about. And then also you've got other things as well. You've got PSSM as well. And then you've also got colic or laminitis. They're probably the ones that are sort of more relatable. This is sort of when the overflow of sugar goes into sugars and starches overflow into the hindgut, where the bacteria is sensitive. So this is all to do with the sort of the cecum. So basically, when those bacteria die, they produce toxins, lactic acid, and they obviously destroy lots of things. So that's quite an in-depth bit about sugar, but very like a really small glance over. So when we're feeding sugar, when it's fed correctly, it's absolutely fine. There are no issues. So a normal horse can have 2 grams of sugar per kilo of body weight per meal. So sugar sensitive horses, so those that potentially have got laminitis or equine metabolic syndrome, they can have 1 gram of sugar per kilo of body weight per meal.
Wow.
So if we go back now to talking about Horslyx, so Horslyx is 33% sugar, but horses don't eat percentages. So if we then break it down further, so 250 grams of Horslyx for a 500 kilo horse works out as 82.5 grams of sugar. So this is way below the recommended daily allowance for even a sugar sensitive horse. And going back to the actual product, like you said, Bex, you lick it. So the horse is licking the product. So they don't eat 5 kilos of Horslyx or 15 kilos of Horslyx in one go. That's going to take a long
They're going to wear their tongue
time.
As
out.
much as some of my horses would like to. I tell you.
They'd have tongue RSI.
I've got one in particular that when we put the big one in the field, she's smashing it up with her hoof because she's just desperate to actually get into it.
Yeah.
And that's her thing. But she hasn't managed to actually eat chunks of it yet. So that's quite impressive.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And because they do have to lick it, like depends on the horse, the size of the horse, how greedy they are, how hungry they are, all those sorts of things. We don't actually know how long it takes. So the best way of doing it is sort of, if you're really, really concerned about, you need to leave it with them, give them a brand new block, say a 5 kilo block, leave it with them for 20 minutes and then reweigh it. And then you'll see how much they've eaten in that 20 minutes. And actually, it's probably going to be a lot less than you think. So then if you think about how quickly do your horses eat a bowl of food? What, 10 minutes, 15 minutes tops?
Yeah.
So that's where the difference comes, is that it's a slow licking process. So yes, it is based on molasses, and yes, it has got sugar in it, but actually when you think of the process of it, it's a slow, steady process. And you've got sugar in the diet anyway, so it's just managing it. But sugar basically, it's not bad.
It's just the quantities. Yeah, that makes so much sense when you explain it like that.
Yeah, I always refer it back to a gobstopper. So if you think of a child with a gobstopper, how long does it take to eat a gobstopper? It's kind of the same principle.
Yeah, okay. Interesting. So, like, how does it compare to the other, like, powders and pellets that you'll find on the market that are balancers? Because I can think of, a number of pellets that are called, feed balancers. What's the difference between this product and those?
Your normal pelleted balancer is obviously a hard feed, so you'd feed it in with their normal feed that you'd give them, like 3-4 times a day, however many times you're feeding them. So Horslyx a lick, so it encourages that trickle feeding a little bit more, which is a bit more like their natural way of eating, so little and often throughout the day. And also because it's a licking action, you've got that saliva that's produced, which is the saliva helps to buffer the stomach acidity. So again, that's always a positive. And it's designed for it's designed for free ad lib access. It's like a tongue twister. And like sort of we discussed a little bit earlier, is that once they have it all the time, they start to take it as and when and limit their own intake. So they sort of regulate their own requirements, not sort of going at it all the time. And that kind of means that they're not overtaking the vitamins and minerals, so you're not overfeeding it. So if you think about that as for you as an owner, it means that you're kind of saving money as well, because you're not feeding them something that they're just excreting. They're sort of starting to regulate their own intake.
That's what I loved about it the most, is I have always fed kind of a balancer before, and balancers are very expensive, and sometimes I used to be putting all the stuff in the feed and thinking, does it really need this? He was fine. He's never had this before, but I've been told now that I've got to feed this, so I feed it, and like being a good owner, this is what I should do. But what I love about the Horslyx, I have the 5 kilos in a holder in the stables, and I have the kind of hay net or the hay bar on one side, and then I have the 5 kilo holders on the other side of the stables. And you see, some they'll go to it, and you can tell, like, if they need the top up, they go and have a little top up of Horslyx, and they move around. It helps them move around the stable more as well. It gives them a little bit more interest in the stable. I just really like that thought that I'm not putting something in them or overfeeding them something that they don't actually need.
That's really interesting. I didn't know it came in a 5 kilo amount, because I've just got the one in the tub, and the reason that was recommended to me at the show.
Oh, the mini.
Yeah. So a few of the show jumpers saw when I bought it. They said, "Oh, they're fantastic. We're shoeing or trimming feet of young stock that are a bit agitated or tacking up." And they said they also use it. They think they're quite good with the stallions because of the smell. They've got a really good smell. It might block the smell from everything else that's going on around the barn, but they use them in the stable just to sort of pacify them and for a range of, ages and experience levels.
Those little ones, the mini ones, are amazing. So one of my friends, actually, I was speaking to her at a show and recommended to do this. Put it into a grazing muzzle. Put it into the grazing muzzle. Put it on the horse whilst I was clipping.
Oh, that's so clever.
And then they just sit there and licking the grazing muzzle while you're clipping them and stuff. I mean, it's so smart, smart. And we also use them for doing our like physio exercises, with the carrot stretches.
Licket stretches.
So
Horslyx
because they follow them round, and I do that with a few of my horses a few times a day. So I get the mint one out for that because the mint flavour they love. So they get the mint one to do the carrot stretches.
How many flavours are there?
So there's 6. So there is. So you've got kind of 3 flavoured products. I mean, they're all flavoured, but they've got 3 flavoured products, and then you've got 3 products that have got more sort of doing bits in them. So all the products are based off the original formulation. So they've all got sort of similar vitamin, minerals, trace elements packages to them. And then they've got bits added on top. So they've all got good quality protein. So we use prairie meal, and then they've got omega oil. They've got a biotin package in there as well, and antioxidants.
Wow.
So they're all based off the original, which has got no added flavour. It's the most cost effective of the bunch, and it's suitable for whether you're doing, 5-star eventing or if you've got like a Shetland.
Okay.
So from the original, we've then got mint. So mint, like Bex was just saying, it's peppermint oil, smells great. You open it up and you just get hit, and it's fantastic. And then we've got garlic. So garlic is great for obviously summer when we're talking about flies and midges and irritations and things. We've actually done studies with Aberystwyth University, to show that it is effective at reducing stress from sweet itch, sort of midges and flies, which is obviously great. So that's garlic, pure garlic oil, slightly higher in salt as well, so which is obviously always a good thing when we're coming into hot weather. So those are the 3 sort of flavoured products, and then the 3 sort of more doing products. We've got mobility, so you've got glucosamine, MSM, and omega oils. It's basically aimed at joints.
I need to lick that.
Yeah, I think we all do when we get.
I might pop that in my grazing model.
So mobility is joints essentially. Also have some research on that from the Thoroughbred Rehabilitation Centre, which is up in the north. It basically showed that there was a reduction in joint stiffness in clinically sound horses. So obviously, again, really positive. Respiratory is another one. So menthol, eucalyptus, and aniseed flavours. So it's essentially a bit like albus oil, but for horses.
It smells amazing, this one. I love the respiratory one. And I have a couple that are a little bit sensitive to the hay, and sometimes you just feel a bit heavier in the wind, and that's the one that I'll be using for that.
Ah, that's interesting.
Yeah, so it's you've got increased vitamin E as well, and you've also got added vitamin C. So they're really helpful in sort of respiratory conditions. And then last but no means least, you've got ProDigest. So you've got slippery elm seaweed meal in there. So that's thought to help reduce the inflammation in mucous membranes, obviously in the gut. And then also you've got prebiotic and probiotic in there as well. So really aimed at sort of helping everything with the gut, and also it's slightly higher in magnesium. So we've got quite a good range of products that you can sort of target at different things that you're potentially concerned about.
What's the age range that that can have these? Like, for example, could a foal or a weanling have these? Is there too young an age?
Yeah. No, there's no too young, and obviously it's just that they're the amounts that they need to have as an intake will just be significantly less than if they're an adult horse, but they can have the full range. There's no issues there whatsoever. It's a question we get asked quite a lot. But they can have them all.
Yeah, okay, interesting.
The ProDigest is one of those that goes against all the myths as well, because I recently had a mare come for me to compete, and she's been scoped with ulcers. I don't have a lot of knowledge. I've never really had horses with ulcers before. I know they are really common. 1 in 3 horses have ulcers, but I've been lucky enough that I have never really experienced it. And that was a big factor, a kind of a discussion point for the owner. Was she allowed these Horslyx? And that's what's brilliant, is the Pro-Digest actually is helping with the ulcers from that point of view, because of the trickle feeding, because lining her stomach, and because getting that saliva,
I might have to get that.
we'll call it the buffering action.
Yes, the buffering of the lining of the stomach. Yep.
Yeah.
And they come in really cool colours. So if you don't want to hear about all the technical stuff, you can just pick the coolest colour.
Yeah.
They're like bright pinks, bright yellows, bright, like they're super cool.
Yeah.
Super cool. So you can certainly see them when you walk into like the farm shop or
Ah.
an equestrian store. It's like, oh, there's the Horslyx.
Yeah, that'd be really interesting, because I've got one
No,
that's a thoroughbred that I've just had on a course of Ulcer Shield and Carafate, and so he's due to start coming off that treatment, weaning him off that treatment. So that might be a really interesting thing to have that in his stable and see if that might help him out.
Yeah, definitely. So
for sure.
it's spiced apple flavour, which I think some horses really like and some horses don't. But I mean, it would be the best one to put him on, definitely. Just to see. Initially, obviously, when you give it to them, unfortunately, they'll go at it like a packet of Jaffa cakes, and they'll be like, "God, this is dreamy." But they do tend to be like us when we open that second bag.
You're supposed to introduce it in small stages. That's correct, is it, Joanna?
Yeah. So the best way to do it is to so as you would with any feed, you don't just go in and be like, "Oh, I'm going to give you a new super cool mix today," and like just chuck in a scoop. So you do exactly the same as you would. You introduce it slowly. So we say sort of between 5 and 7 days. So initially, when you're tacking up or something, have it so that they can lick it while you're doing something with them, so you're monitoring that they're getting it. And then after that time, once they've had it, you can leave it ad lib. And hopefully by that time as well, the novelty would have worn off, that they are not going to like just leave their face in it all the time, that they'll just take it as and when. But they do, majority of horses, obviously not all horses, the majority of horses will start to self-regulate and they won't like go at it full time. But yeah, introduce it gradually like you would any normal feed.
And could you mix them around? So if they really like them, you can use different ones for different times, like each night, depending on what they've done and how they're managing life. Can you sort of change them around ad lib?
Yeah, you can do. So I would say probably feed them for at least 2 weeks of each flavour. So you actually, obviously, if you're looking for mobility help, you need to feed them for a minimum period.
Yeah, okay.
So if we, so for example, the garlic study that was done, the horses were fed them for 4 weeks. To actually build up that sort of garlic help against the flies and the midges. So I'd say minimum of 2 weeks, and then you can sort of see, and then you can change them. But I mean, you can feed them seasonally. It doesn't have to be one flavour all the time, and especially if you're feeding one full time. So for example, I know Bex feeds mobility, respiratory and Pro-Digest, but if you're looking at a distraction age, you go for a different flavour. So you'd go for your mint, for example, or garlic or original, just so that actually you get that new novelty. So actually they become more interested in it because it's not something that they're having all the time. Just to change the flavour.
And are there any banned substances, or can they be used in high-end competition and it shows in, are they FER legal?
Yeah, so Horslyx monitors, so NOPS basically, so we are beta NOPS accredited, which is essentially means that you're safe to compete on them. And because we've got the accreditation, it means that we have to basically make sure that we've got full traceability of the product, of what's come in and where it's come from, to make sure that we don't have any traces of those knobs. So caffeine, for example, is probably the easiest one, to make sure that there's nothing in the feed. So if you're competing under any rules, it's absolutely fine to feed, and we've got the beta NOPS accreditation on all of the packaging as well.
Oh, that sounds fantastic. I'm gonna have to get some more flavors, I think.
Honestly, they're amazing. I'm addicted. Well, my horses are addicted as well,
I think all the flavors, and that they're competition legal, which is great. I love the fact that they have different uses for them, including like a more medicinal one and then a sort of a fun distraction one. I love the first part that when you were talking about the fact that the myth about sugar, and that we look at them as lollies. And when you think about it, like, how much do you take in a lick? Like, that really made me think, oh yeah, okay, so that's actually not very much. So I don't know, I think it's really interesting.
I think that it's a low sugar intake product, even though it's based on molasses. So it's 82.5 grams of sugar per 250 grams of Horslyx, and that's essentially the take home message, that actually it is it's low in sugar, and it's a slow process to eat that sugar. And when you compare a 500 kilo horse, for example, 82.5 grams of sugar isn't really much in their entire diet when you compare it to things like cool mix, for example, or hay, and especially when you talk about grass. And I think a lot of horse owners don't know that grass is so high in sugar, but they get turned out quite a lot. So it's
they do need it.
Yeah.
You said something about how many packs of polos was in a case. It was in like a 5 kilo, which was like essentially, was it 2 packs of polos? But it's a different type of sugar, I know that, but that did actually ring home true for me, because I think
I think it's David Marlin. He's obviously got a great Facebook page, and I saw it on there that I think a normal non-sugar-free packet of polos is about 33 grams of sugar. So if you think that 33 grams of sugar, you need to feed 3 packs of polos to have about the same amount of sugar as you would in a Horslyx. But if you think how quickly a horse would take polos out your hand, it's very different to when they have to lick something. And I think at the moment, I don't know whether you've seen it, but there's a lot of chat about feeding carrots, that you shouldn't feed carrots to horses because they're full of sugar. And
I've heard that.
Everything's got sugar in it, but carrots are like 80% water. So it's really not that bad. And if we sort of touch on what I was saying before and about the different types of carbohydrates, is that the horse is designed to eat the grass, but obviously because we stable them and they have a different lifestyle, they don't. There's a lot of people as well that feed horses that perhaps don't need feeding because they're not in as much work as they think that they're in. And I did quite a lot of that when I did my masters, is that people always sort of underestimate the fatness of their horse. So because then the owners,
we always look at them through rose tinted glasses, don't we?
Oh, of course, we do.
He looks outstanding.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
It looks very well.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think when people are feeding, they don't necessarily. Obviously, I'm sort of stereotyping a lot of people now, but majority of people probably don't feed what's recommended on the feed bag, or feed according to their true workload. So if a horse is doing, for example, 3 hours of work a week, then they're in maintenance. They're not in light work. But I think a lot of people sort of think that light work is a lot less than they think it is. So for example, if they're doing 3 hours a week, they're in light work, but a horse that's doing Grand Prix dressage is medium work, and hard work is 100-kilometer endurance races. There's still a really big difference between those gaps. So it's when you think of that, and as professionals, it's a little bit different, but I think we also humanize horses a lot. So we think, oh, they look sad today, or it's been cold today, I'll give them an extra scoop, or I'll do this, when actually they probably don't need it, because they've got a giant heating engine that keeps them warm.
This is so true, isn't it?
They are babies after all, come on.
Absolutely, of course. I do it with my dog. I'm like, oh, he looks sad. Not that he eats, but I'm like, oh, have some more food.
Do dogs come today?
It's just
I don't
realizing
think so.
actually. So it's being realistic with what your horse actually does, and there is sugar in the diet, and sugar isn't bad, and actually you can get different forms of sugar, and you get sugar throughout the diet no matter where you feed it, and it's just being very sensible and really rational about what they're getting, when they're getting it, and how much they need. So I mean, like, sugar's not the devil, basically, but it's been made out to be.
No, I think that's really interesting. Well, should we to finish off, should we do some quick fire questions and keep your answers to a few words?
Sure.
We should challenge you here, Joanna. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Let's do this.
Okay. Yeah. Stallion, gelding, or mare?
Gelding all day.
Is there any one thing? Beck's a mare person. Is there any one thing you think every horse owner should know?
Sugar isn't bad when you look at the entire diet.
Favorite discipline?
To ride, dressage, to watch, show jumping.
What's something you love about working in the equestrian industry?
People writing in about this.
The variety of different people that you meet, and their experiences.
What do you want to be what did you want to be when you grew up?
A vet.
Oh, you're not far off. What's something you wish you knew before starting your career in the equestrian industry?
You probably don't need a degree to do it. You just need lots of experience.
Oh, that's really interesting. Yeah. What's your favorite non-horse related hobby?
I do a lot of clay pigeon shooting.
No. Oh my God. How diverse are you?
She's very, very, very good, in fact.
Oh no, I'm definitely not. I did a competition yesterday and I tanked hard, but it's fine. It happens.
You're not. You're good.
Wow, that's
you're good.
Awesome. And what is the greatest lesson you've learned from your career?
You have to work really hard to get where you want to be, and nothing comes without sacrifice, I think.
Yeah. But it's worth it in the end.
Oh, it's definitely worth it in the end. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Oh.
But yeah, you got to. You don't get
really
anything for free, do you, in this world?
Yeah, no, it's very true, isn't it? Oh, that's been ace, Joanna. Thank you so much. We'll wrap it up now, but it's been great talking to you. This has been the Equestrian Experience with myself, Amanda Ross, my co-host, Bex Mason, and this episode's guest, Joanna Hockly-Andrews from Horslyx. To send in your questions for our up-and-coming episodes, enter our competitions, and access our other episodes, be sure to visit theequestrianexperiencepodcast.com. You can also follow us at Amanda Ross Equestrian and at Bex Mason SJ, and find Joanna and Horslyx on Instagram at Joanna Horslyx Smartlick, or beautiful range of Horslyx products at horselyx.com. Anyway, until next time, have a great equestrian experience. Bye.